Hi, I'm State Representative Chad-Magendanz. In my last video update, we talked in general about K-12 education funding in the state Supreme Court's McCleary ruling. Today, I'd like to talk about school levy reform. The courts have been very clear that state education funding has to increase so we're no longer dependent on local levies to pay for our program of basic education. The reason is that our Constitution requires funding to be through dependable and regular tax sources, and local levies are anything but. We also have levy lids that cap the amount that local districts are allowed to raise at 28% of state and federal funding. But 91 districts have higher limits grandfathered from the 70s for reasons that don't make any sense now. Currently, about 20% of a teacher's salary is paid by local levies, and districts are supplementing that to offer competitive wages in high cost of living areas. But this funding has to be renewed by voters every 4 years. Also, taxpayers throughout the state pay very different property tax rates to raise what they're allowed, depending on the real estate markets in those areas. For example, Seattle's rate is just $1.36 per $1,000 assessed value, when the average for the state is $3.55. In some areas with especially low property values, taxpayers would need to pay over 70 times Seattle's rate to raise their 28% levy lid, which is still almost 9% less than Seattle's grandfathered rate. Of course, local voters wouldn't possibly approve those sky-high property tax rates. So it seems clear that the local school funding policies we have right now are neither uniform nor equitable. So what would be fair? Well, Senate Republicans and I have proposed reducing the local levy lid to a flat rate of $1.25 per $1,000 assessed value, providing over $1.2 billion per year in local property tax relief. But we've got to make up that lost school funding, and that's where strategies differ. Republicans generally prefer reducing non-education spending and restoring some of the state's common school levy, the property tax that's traditionally funded public schools, which has been eroded from its limit of $3.60 per thousand to about $2 now because of Initiative 747, which is not allowed to keep up with inflation. Democrats would prefer a capital gains tax, basically an income tax on investments, which they believe would put most of the burden on the wealthy, but will see some challenges on its constitutionality. Either approach looks for a greater contribution from Seattle and Bellevue areas, but the capital gains tax actually puts about twice the burden on those districts. So how would this affect schools throughout the state? Well, in a property levy swap, Seattle will see the biggest net increase in both taxes and state funding. Their net tax rate goes up by $1.43, but because of their higher cost of living, Seattle schools end up receiving an additional $105 million. Still, the net to the district is a loss of $97 million. In contrast, Tacoma will see a net tax reduction of $1.64 and will be held harmless for the $2 million in reductions to school funding. The net to their district, however, is a gain of $30 million. A district like Issaquah will see a slight increase of 59 cents to the tax rate, but will get an additional $17 million for schools, and taxpayers will get back $3.13 for every dollar in new property taxes. Generally, districts with low property values get more tax relief, and districts with higher values get more school funding so they can offer competitive wages for their regions. So, the House Appropriations Committee had a meeting on levy reform last week. We had a good discussion, and the plan is to keep talking about a levy exchange as one of the possible solutions to the McCleary ruling. It's a complicated issue, and not everyone is on board, but at this point, I think it offers the best option for education funding reform. That's all for now. In my next update, we'll continue discussion of K-12 funding. Thanks, and have a great day.